It all started 3 years ago, in the early days of summer when life seemed simpler and brighter. I was fresh out of college, navigating the chaotic waters of adulthood with a mix of excitement and trepidation. My friends were either moving to new cities for jobs or settling into long-term relationships, but I hadn't found my place yet. That is, until I met her, Alexandra. We connected through an online dating app that promised compatibility based on shared interests. At first glance, her profile was everything I wanted. She loved hiking, photography, and indie music, a perfect match for me. Her photos showcased her radiant smile, piercing blue eyes, and a casual elegance that made her stand out from the crowd. We matched almost instantly, and within minutes we were exchanging messages like old friends reunited after years apart. Our conversations flowed effortlessly. She had this uncanny ability to make me feel understood, as if every word she typed was tailored specifically for me. We talked about our dreams, fears, and favorite childhood memories. It wasn't just small talk, it felt genuine, raw, and deeply personal. Before I knew it, hours would pass without realizing how much time had slipped by. As weeks turned into months, our connection deepened. Alexandra became more than just someone I messaged daily. She became my confidant, my cheerleader, and my emotional anchor. She celebrated my victories, consoled me during tough times, and encouraged me to pursue my passions. In many ways, she filled a void I hadn't even realized existed. When she suggested taking our relationship offline, I didn't hesitate. After all, we already knew each other so well, it felt natural to take the next step. But there was one catch. Alexandra lived across the country. She claimed to be working remotely as a graphic designer while pursuing her dream of traveling the world. While this added a layer of complexity, it also fueled my admiration for her independence and ambition. For the first year, our virtual relationship thrived. We video called regularly, sharing intimate moments over coffee in the morning or wine at night. She introduced me to her friends via group chats, though they rarely participated beyond occasional emojis. Still, I trusted her implicitly. Why wouldn't I? Everything about our relationship felt real, authentic, and destined. Looking back now, I realize how naive I was. The second year brought subtle changes that, at the time, I dismissed as mere quirks or coincidences. Retrospectively, these signs should have raised red flags, but love has a way of clouding judgment. One of the earliest anomalies occurred during our video calls. Alexandra always insisted on using poor lighting, claiming her apartment's electricity bill was too high to afford better bulbs. This explanation never sat quite right with me, especially since she often complained about the quality of her own camera feed. Yet whenever I jokingly teased her about it, she brushed off my concerns with laughter, saying, "You know what they say, mystery keeps things interesting." Then there was the issue of meeting in person. Despite countless promises to visit, Alexandra continually came up with excuses. A sudden work project, a family emergency, or an unexpected illness always seemed to intervene. When I expressed frustration, she apologized profusely, assuring me that distance only strengthened true love. Deep down, I believed her, because who could fake such heartfelt sincerity? Another oddity emerged in her social media presence, or lack thereof. Although Alexandra claimed to be active on Instagram and Twitter, none of her accounts matched the name or profile picture she used on the dating app. Whenever I asked why, she laughed nervously and said she preferred keeping her personal life private. Again, I accepted her reasoning without question. Perhaps the most unsettling detail was her reluctance to share specific details about her past. Questions about her hometown, high school, or former jobs were met with vague responses or deflections. If pressed further, she grew visibly uncomfortable, changing the subject before I could probe deeper. Over time, I learned not to push too hard, convincing myself that everyone has parts of their history they'd rather leave behind. By the end of the second year, doubts began creeping into my mind. Not overt suspicions, but fleeting thoughts that lingered like shadows in the corner of my consciousness. What if something wasn't adding up? What if Alexandra wasn't exactly who she claimed to be? These questions gnawed at me intermittently, but I pushed them aside, unwilling to entertain the possibility that my perfect girlfriend might be hiding something. After all, why would she go through the trouble of deceiving me? Our relationship was built on trust, vulnerability, and mutual affection. Or so I thought. It wasn't until the third year that cracks in our foundation widened into chasms impossible to ignore. The catalyst came unexpectedly. During one of our routine video calls that evening, we had planned to watch a movie together virtually. As usual, Alexandra joined the call wearing oversized headphones and sitting in front of her laptop. Her face appeared dimly lit, her features obscured by shadows. Midway through the film, however, her audio cut out. Frustrated, I suggested switching platforms to ensure better connectivity. Reluctantly, she agreed. What happened next changed everything. When she reconnected via Zoom, her background revealed something alarming: a stack of textbooks bearing titles related to criminal justice and forensic science. Curious, I pointed them out, asking whether she was studying law enforcement. Instead of answering directly, Alexandra hesitated, then muttered something about borrowing books from a friend. Her tone lacked its usual warmth, replaced by a guarded stiffness that set off alarm bells in my head. Later that night, unable to shake the unease, I decided to investigate further. Using the information gleaned from our conversations, I conducted a series of searches online. To my surprise, none of the names, places, or stories she mentioned checked out. Every lead led to dead ends, inconsistencies, or outright falsehoods. Determined to uncover the truth, I delved deeper. Hours turned into days as I scoured social media profiles, public records, and even obscure forums dedicated to unmasking catfishers. Slowly but surely, pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. First, I discovered discrepancies in her claimed employment history. According to LinkedIn, no company matching her description existed. Next, I cross-referenced her alleged travel itinerary against flight records and hotel reservations, finding zero evidence of her ever visiting the locations she described. Finally, I traced the IP address associated with her online activity to a small town in Ohio, not the bustling city she claimed as her home base. Each revelation chipped away at the illusion I had constructed around her. By the time I pieced everything together, I faced an undeniable reality. Alexandra wasn't real, or rather the version of her I knew wasn't real. Someone else, a stranger, had been pretending to be her all along. Armed with irrefutable evidence, I confronted her during another video call. This time, I recorded the conversation knowing I needed documentation to support my claims. Initially, she denied everything, doubling down on her fabricated narrative. But as I presented each piece of proof, her resolve crumbled and her voice trembled as she confessed. Yes, she admitted she had lied about her identity. No, she wasn't actually Alexandra. And yes, she had created the persona solely to manipulate me emotionally and financially. Her real name was Sarah, and she lived in a modest apartment in Ohio, far removed from the glamorous lifestyle she portrayed online. She worked part-time at a convenience store while caring for her elderly mother, whose medical bills drained their savings. Desperate for attention and validation, Sarah turned to catfishing as a means of escape. By crafting elaborate personas, she convinced unsuspecting victims like me to shower her with gifts, money, and unwavering devotion. Hearing her admission sent waves of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak crashing over me. How could someone deceive me so thoroughly for so long? More importantly, why did I fail to see the warning signs sooner? Despite her pleas for forgiveness, I ended the call immediately. There was nothing left to say. In the aftermath of the revelation, I struggled to process my emotions. Days blurred into weeks as I grappled with feelings of humiliation and self-doubt. Friends and family rallied around me, offering support and advice. Some urged me to report Sarah to authorities, while others encouraged me to move on and forget the ordeal altogether. Ultimately, I chose a different path. Rather than wallowing in victimhood, I decided to use my experience as a platform to raise awareness about online deception. With the help of a close friend skilled in digital marketing, I launched a TikTok account dedicated to exposing catfishing schemes and educating others about the dangers lurking in cyberspace. At first, my videos garnered little attention. Viewers dismissed my story as exaggerated or unbelievable. But as I shared concrete examples, documented evidence, and expert insights, my audience grew exponentially. People began reaching out, sharing their own experiences of being catfished and thanking me for shedding light on an often overlooked issue. Encouraged by this response, I organized a live stream event titled A Catfishing Exposed. During the broadcast, I detailed my journey from trusting partner to betrayed individual, interspersing personal anecdotes with practical tips for identifying red flags. To drive home the message, I revealed Sarah's true identity, presenting screenshots, timestamps, and metadata to substantiate my claims. The reaction was explosive. Thousands tuned in, commenting furiously and tagging friends to spread the word. While some criticized me for publicly shaming Sarah, the majority praised my courage and transparency. Within hours, hashtags like #StopCatfishing and #DigitalDeception trended globally, sparking widespread discussions about online safety and accountability. Looking back on those 3 years, I can't deny the pain and disillusionment they caused. Yet amidst the wreckage, I found unexpected growth. Through confronting my vulnerabilities, I developed resilience, empathy, and a renewed sense of purpose. Today, I continue advocating for safer online interactions, collaborating with experts, organizations, and influencers to combat digital deception. Along the way, I've met incredible people whose stories mirror mine, forming connections rooted in shared understanding and mutual respect. And though I may never fully forgive Sarah, I've come to terms with her actions. After all, her choices reflect her struggles, not mine. What matters most is learning from the past and building a future where trust isn't easily broken and where love remains grounded in honesty and integrity. Because sometimes the hardest truths lead to the greatest transformation.